why people are so afraid of it, because they think, it has to be catastrophic in some way. So no, it's not out of line at all, Allie. It's actually right in line with why people so very often resist change, because they think it has to be something catastrophic, right? So yeah, I've had a pretty crappy week or so myself. Not to that extent by any stretch of the imagination, but just been one where I've, personally been trying to play catch up and trying not to be destructive. Best way I can say it. What's up, Inspector Gadget? Thanks for showing up, dude. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the idea of change and how it scares the dickens out of people. Like, it literally will. People resist it like no tomorrow, right? The idea that we creatures of habit. Best way I can say it. You have a problem with you're not alone, Jamode. You are not alone. Most people can't even define or spell the word change. They're so averse to it. They're so resistant to the concept of the idea that something has to be different in their lives one day to the next for it's the whole idea of progress, right? Are you happy where you are at? And the scariest thing someone can say to that question is yes. Right? So, today we're going to talk about the whole, I guess, the idea that that somebody is actually open to the idea of change. We're going to make some assumptions. And then once we've kind of decided that, I guess I'm willing to talk about it. Once we've kind of crossed that road, then we'll go one step further and talk about kind of the elements or the process of change, and typically what happens or what makes change successful. Best way I can say it. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that, Shmo, this idea of change. So I'm gonna intermingle in the conversation of change the idea of organizational change. So change within the dynamic of not just you, but also when you have the whole, maybe a family, or in my case over the years, it's the businesses that I've been associated with. Like, when you've got several hundred employees that you've got to try and all get everyone to shift direction into one time and space together. I think the challenge there is, how do you convince all those people that this is something that we want to do, nay, that we need or have to do, when you've got employees that that have been there for 30 years and never changed. I've been doing this same job for 30 years, and now you're asking me to do it this way, but I've never done it that way. And so the mindset there, the idea there is that because I've been doing it 30 years, it must be right. It must work. It works, so why would I change it, right? That old adage, don't fix what isn't broken. So, when it's typically those people that can't even really define the idea of change. So, in your mind, when I say I want to talk about change, what do you think I mean when I say change? Right? Am I talking just about a course change, a lighting change? Like, when you say change? When I say change to you, what does that usually mean? And then after we kind of have this conversation, I'll kind of give you the kind of the overview of the kind of the high points of what I want to talk about today. Because change can be a lot of things to a lot of people. Yeah, it's something that is, the word, you use the word alter, and I know what you meant. And I think you could probably go a little step further. So I think, Ali, I think you're more on kind of how I would define as well. So it's a combination of the two. So it's not necessarily just a physical, like the verb, in the sense of I'm going to change the way I walk, or I'm going to change the way I move this widget from there to here. It's a mindset, and that's where when you say always known, that's what that's kind of where I'm saying you're touching on a different area. A lot of people think of change as something that is, kind of this physical in nature thing, where the process that we've always, no problem, Miss H, appreciate you. The process that we've embarked on for the past 30 years in loading pop onto a truck has looked this way. But now instead of using the forklift, we're going to use this new mechanical device to get it from here to there. Well, I think the idea and what people have a hard time understanding, and the reason why they say, well, why do we have to do it that way, is because you didn't start with the knowledge base. And Ali, that's what you're talking about, right? This idea that, yes, there's a process change that has to happen where functionally it's going to look different, but there's a logical reason why change is important. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. This idea of preloading this before you get to the actual moving of anything. Does that make sense? Because if you don't understand the why you have to change, I can tell you that, and this gets to the overview of today, you're really going to have a hard time changing, right? So obviously, we're going to talk about the gym a little bit and the change that happens there. So we're going to talk overview-wise. We're going to talk about kind of the idea of why most efforts change in when people do them, right? The nature of change. How do you go about that? And when things change, this is kind of what happens. We'll talk about a process. There's an 8-step process. Some might say it's 7 or even 9. But I'm going to talk about an 8-step process today about change and kind of that will lead you through how change happens. When we talk about, again, I'm going to use the term organizational change, but really it's not. The topic I'm going to bring today is this idea of how do you, your family, the people around you, when you're leading them through a change, the idea of there's even stages to that as well. And if time permitting, we'll touch on that stuff. But one of the things that you have to remember is that in order for change to happen, it takes an instigator. It takes as my mom used to say, a shit disturber. It takes somebody who has to think differently and want to flip the paradigm. Right? You, as we talk about change, and I say this, change starts with you. So guess what? You're the leader. Yes, you. The one that says you can never be the leader, guess what? You are. You have to be. My mom used to always, you're a little, she used to call me that constantly. I swear that was my nickname. And the hardest thing is it's one thing to be a leader when you're trying to change something yourself. Look, I'm trying to quit smoking, say, or I don't smoke, but or I'm trying to stop cussing, or whatever that individual thinks. But it's something entirely different when you're trying to lead a change of culture. So say in your home, you're trying to shift how much TV you watch in your home. Say as a family, you collectively sit and you watch a ton of TV every week, and it takes away from other more constructive things that you now want to do. So there's a shift there that you're trying to make culturally in your family. Might be screen time. Might just be how much time do I spend on my phone, technology as a family. I'm deciding as the leader of my family to have a culture shift in how much focus we put on our technology and those sort of things. So those are kind of some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And some of the best ways to kind of set that up, I think, is to also talk about kind of some of the fears of change. And we'll just kind of highlight. So for you, when I say change, what do you think some of the biggest fears to change would be? Some of the biggest fears, especially when we talk about success. What you're saying, I'm going to change something. What are some of things that you would say would inhibit the success of that change happening. And as you guys are typing, I'm going to totally distract you and let everyone know we have Rise Above and Risk Immersed stickers. Look at them. They're amazing. Look. They're the actual emotes in sub badges and stuff. And they're glossy. And they're waterproof. And they can go on your cups and stuff. Yeah. They're freaking amazing. They're like, I don't know if you can tell, but they're super high quality. Look at these things. They're glossy. I'll try and get them to, yeah, they're glossy and they're vinyl, so they're waterproof. Like, look at him, he's so cute. Where's my favorite one? Where's he at? Oh, there he is. Look at him. He's freaking amazing. Yeah, they're super good. So I don't know if you checked Discord lately. I'm just saying you might want to check Discord, because I probably posted something in there about these stickers and how to get them. And last I checked, it sounded like they were pretty cheap, maybe even free. Free stickers. Yeah. Check it out, Discord. Risk Immersed. On your coffee mug or on your MacBook Pro. Free. For a limited time only. They are super high quality, Jmode, just like the stream. Oh, get out of here. Just give me your information. I'll get you the stupid sticker sheet. What you say, risk, pun intended. Yes, great pun, by the way. And you worry, that's what's on the other side is good. Why? So you second guess the change that you're trying to implement. Well, if you're doing that, then your setup's all wrong. Let me just put it that way. You know, you've agreed that change is necessary. You just haven't done your homework to ensure it's the right change that you're implementing, right? So you shouldn't be implementing a change, especially large-scale change. You know, we're not talking about changing your socks from purple to green. We're talking about large-scale, institutional or personal life change type things. And if you're going to do, yeah, and the grass isn't always greener, and you've got to be careful, and that's why you've got to do your homework. So these are the 10 things that I come up with. The 10 biggest fears of holding you back. And I actually have notes today. You guys be so proud of me. I think the first one for me, and these are my top 10, is inadequacy. Am I good enough? Really? Can I? Because remember, if you're talking about change, you're the leader. You're the one that's in charge of making the decision to start. Just have the conversation. You then have to implement the steps. And we're going to talk a little bit about this as well, because I'm not saying that you have to do this alone. Right? I'm saying that you are the one who starts it. So the uncertainty, and this is what you talk about, Allie, this idea of the change, it's risky. You don't know. You really don't know. Even if you do all of your homework, there is some uncertainty. So I completely agree with you with the idea that, that you risk, and this is my number 3, you risk failure. By saying, I want this to be different, this process, instead of doing it this way, instead of spending my time with this person, I'm going to start hanging with this person, or whatever the case may be. You're risking some form of failure, and that idea of grass isn't always greener. The other is rejection, which goes to me as part of failure, but it's different, because failure is more of a process. Failure, I'm thinking when I say failure, and rejection is people. So I've got all these people, on stream, and say I want to change the color scheme. I no longer want to be this guy. I want to be, this guy. I don't know. Just throwing it. And you guys maybe, yeah, that's awesome. But ideally, you might say, no, that's the stupidest thing ever. Why would you want to change from who you are to that? I want cheese on my burger. That's an awesome name. Hi, I'm here. For example, unhappy in the city. I'm living in too big, too turbulent, but afraid to do something about it. Start somewhere from zero again. Well, let me tell you, brother. So welcome to the stream first and foremost. I don't know if I don't recognize the name. I want cheese on my cheeseburger. On my burger, I should say. But if we know each other, please let me know where I know you're from. Or if you're someone across the stream, that's phenomenal. Thanks for joining us. So 9 years ago, my family and I had 3 kids and my wife. I quit. So get this. I quit my job, $100,000 a year job. I sold the house I just built. I moved from Toronto, Canada, to Michigan in the United States with no expectation. I literally came here to go to school, and then now we're doing what we're doing. So, cheeseburger, because that's what I call you, because if you want cheese on your burger, that's what you are. It's a cheeseburger. You are literally asking the question that I've lived for the past 9 years. And you know how you make it happen? I dare you, because you're telling me you want to do it, because you're unhappy where you are. So you're saying you want to, you're just afraid to commit. You know how you make it happen? Tell somebody close to you that you're doing it. Even if you don't have a house picked, if you don't have nothing, just tell somebody close to you, hey, guess what? I've decided I'm going to move out of Jackson, Michigan, and I'm going to move to Lansing or wherever you're from. That starts it. It creates buy-in and commitment. And well, again, this is part of this whole idea of change. So we're going to get to that. So I welcome to the stream first and foremost there, Cheeseburger, because that's what your new name is. So name change, please. You're allowed every 90 days to change your name. That's the first thing. So because what you got to get over first is this idea of I'm afraid of being rejected. So just start telling people. What if you what if you want to be me? Well, there are some steps. But that's a sidebar conversation. You know, you see the little cheer 100 beside your name with the little flexi doohickey? I'd suggest starting there. The other thing is, and this might be, I want cheese on my burger, that part of what you're talking about is this idea of missing out. You know, you think moving from this town to this town, you might miss something. Maybe it's people, maybe it's your favorite restaurant or whatever the case is. Another great thing to do, and this is, I encourage this people all the time when we talk about change is not necessarily an all at once 100% thing. Change can be a little bite. You know, that old adage, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. Right? You can't, it's not necessarily big changes require sometimes incremental or bit by bit steps. The 10 biggest fears, again, for me, number 6 is change itself. Just the sheer fact that things are going to be different and I'm comfortable. It's just, for me, because in Jimode, you touched on this, you know, you got to be in control. That's another tough one for me is I'm a control guy. And I've worked pretty hard at giving up the reins on a lot of stuff here. I think Rise Above is a prime example of that. In hiring Nick Rush, my area manager here, and giving over a lot of the responsibilities to him from the day-to-day operations of things. And it's just been, from my standpoint, a phenomenal gift once I realized the benefit of doing so. It immediately made things better for me. It helped me to overcome a lot of the challenges that I was facing day to day that I didn't even realize that not letting go of certain things were causing. Ali, would you say the idea of moving in the U.S. is so much more common than it is over here? And it was a huge change for me. It was I can't even tell you how scary that was. Just the security aspect, knowing that I was going from a very secure job and to that I was putting my family at risk financially. The uncertainty of not knowing, because I can't work here and I couldn't work here in the States. Oh, Allie, bro. Thanks for the sub, man. Thank you very much for joining the gym. There is a thing with the gym though, and you need to know that every Monday, every Thursday, every Thursday is leg day, bro. You can't skip leg day. You skip leg day, I'm gonna be all over you. It's just gonna happen. So welcome to the gym. It's gonna be one of those things where you might learn something day to day. You got to suffer with me. You know, it's funny you say that, Jamode, because last Friday, because I missed Thursday, I didn't miss it. I actually had to shift my schedule one day last week. So I did legs on Friday, where typically I do it on Thursday. And I changed my routine. I actually changed my squat game a little bit. And I normally don't do leg press and squats together. And I did squats at the same time I did leg press. And man, I was suffering all weekend. And even now we had a staff meeting, and that's why I was a little bit late today coming on air. I suffered, and I went to get out of my chair to come do the stream, and I could barely stand up out of my chair. So, but Ali, thank you very much for joining the gym, buddy. You are fun as heck to watch, and I'm glad you're a part of the crew. What's that, Cheeseburger? Thanks for the advice. You're from Germany. Oh, nice. I was actually supposed to go to Germany a couple years ago and couldn't make it, but it's on my radar for the next actually 12 months. So I might tap on your door one day, with permission, mind you. I don't quite remember in what stream it was, but maybe Air Max, where you told about your format and I followed you. Oh, thanks, buddy. Oh, so you know me through Air Max. That's awesome. I'm glad you like Air Max too. He's a solid guy. Yeah, different. And starting later today probably helped you with that, buddy. But again, thank you for joining us. So back to my top 10s. So we talked about losing control, as Jamode talked about. The other is being judged. You don't want people to look at you and go, well, that guy's freaking crazy. I can't believe he just gave up, that awesome job, or that's been working that way for 30 years. And I can't believe he totally ditched that method. And, a lot of people don't like having other people kind of throw down on them like that. That can be something difficult for folks. People obviously being afraid of something bad happening, or in my number 10 is obviously I don't want to get hurt physically or emotionally. I don't want to be hurt in the process. There's a cartoon out there somewhere where it shows this skydiver jumping out of a plane, and he's kind of falling, and you just see the plane just above him 10 or 20 feet or so, and over the loudspeaker it goes, okay, there's been a small change. Now the red bags are the lunch and for the sandwiches and drinks, and the green bags are your parachute. And of course, he's got the red bag on his back and doesn't have his parachute. So, people can fear change because it can come at the wrong time. In this guy's case, came a few seconds too late, where he's already out of the plane. He's already falling towards the earth, plummeting, as it were. And somebody announced change in the process that, in his case, is about to be pretty catastrophic. So, I mean, it's not fair to say at any point that change is easy, because any type of, especially deep change, it's going to be difficult. It's not something that's going to come easily to most. I'd say the vast majority of people are going to find change extremely difficult, and not something that you're going to, even when you want it, that you're going to accept readily. The nature of the beast is you're going to resist it. We're, again, creatures of habit, It's often difficult to convince others as well. So if you've got a family and you're trying to convince them that less screen time is more important, and that you gotta get off the video games at 9:00 instead of 10:30 as they always do. And thank you, Best Buy, for the sponsorship. You've really got to do a good job of communicating. Yeah, no problem, bud. So, and the other thing that scares a lot of people, in why most change efforts fail, is you're not an expert at it. Most of us don't consciously sit there and think about how to implement change. Right? You think about driving your car. You make all kinds of last minute changes constantly. Where suddenly instead of going to this store, I'm going to go to that store, or I'm going to make a left instead of right. There's no real. You don't sit there and make a plan. You don't. Especially if you're just scooting around town, because it's little changes. But yet, if you're planning a trip across country, heck, you're going to sit there and plan your route out. Because it's important. And so a lot of people are fearful of planning these big life changes like Cheeseburger is, with this idea that I'm, changing cities that you live in. That's a big change. And that requires a lot of planning. To get from A to B is not as simple as putting your turn signal on and turning right or left. It is institutional in the sense that you have to, if you want to talk about these fears that I mentioned, you might have a bigger list than me, but these are my 10. If you're talking about change as you're going about it, if you're haphazard, your risk level is going to skyrocket. Because it's in your personality might be that you're haphazard. But I would say that anytime you're going to think about making a huge change, like city-wise, is that you've done your homework. Because you don't want to move into another city and find out it's the exact same city that you just moved from. Culturally, socially, litter, whatever your issue is with the city. You got to make sure you're actually changing the environment. And so you've got to do some homework in order to make that happen. So there are a couple of different types of change that you need to understand as well. So there's an evolutionary change, which the name kind of gives it away. Evolutionary change is one that happens over time. It's slow, it's methodical, it's incremental is another great way of saying it, or gradual. It tends to be very lower pressure, and any pressure you do feel tends to be outside of you. It tends to be somebody else that's putting pressure on you because you're just different. You're just not being you today, right? Versus the revolutionary change where it's an all at once. I'm quitting smoking cold turkey, right? Well, it's usually, like I said, overnight or super fast. And that's why all these, and I'm going to use smoking as a prime example of this change, is that's why all these like patches and Nicorette gum, and I'm no branding there, but all the stuff out there to help you, as the commercial says, quit slow turkey, is important. And that's not just for smoking. That is for a lot of things. There are things where your life is at risk and you need to be very revolutionary in your approach, right? So you one day you have a massive coronary heart attack and your doctor says, if you don't stop doing XYZ today, you're going to be dead by next week. Well, that's going to require you don't have time for an evolutionary change. You've got to be pretty revolutionary there and now. You can't wait. But when we're talking about, screen time, we'll just keep going back to that. Or when we're talking about just a life change for joining, like say Ali joining the gym. So he's agreed now to start working out at the gym. He's agreed that leg days, he has no issue with leg day. Understand, it's easy to get frustrated when you go to the gym, that you're going to get there and you're going to look a certain way and you're going to move the weights and you're going to, look at me, I'm moving weights today. Then you're going to look in the mirror at the end of that day in the gym and you're going to go, wait a second, but nothing's changed. I'm still the same me I was an hour ago. You don't go to the gym and you're frustrated? That's because you don't go to the gym. But the idea there is going to the gym is an evolutionary change. You've agreed that I'm willing to put in the time, an incremental effort. You made it. Yay, Mrs. H. You've been willing to put in the time and the incremental effort needed to bring about some form of dramatic change. But you're not going to see that dramatic change overnight. It's going to take a period of time. So, and this is where understanding also there are limitations where you may even want a revolutionary change, but it's just not possible. And the gym is a prime example where you're going to say, I'm going to change my diet today. I'm only eating salads from now on. Well, know that you're not just going to drop 20 pounds overnight. Even though you've made the revolutionary change, the actual change that you want to happen, because you don't want the eating to change, you want the weight to change. The actual change that you want to happen is more of an evolutionary change as opposed to a revolutionary change. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Because you have to understand the type of change that you want as you begin the approach to effectively making it happen. So there is a guy named Kotter. I'm trying to remember the year. I can't remember the year. But it's called the 8-step process to change. I know, really catchy name, really unique. But it's the Kotter 8-step process to change. It's really well known. You can Google it. It's I wouldn't say it's everywhere, but it's out there. And it's good. We're going to cover it right now. You know, the idea there is that it gives you building blocks to start from when you're starting to put your plan together to bring about change. So it basically works like this. It's 8 steps. There's create, and I've got them written down so I don't forget any steps along the way because I tend to jump when I have these chats. So create, build. These are the highlighted words. Create, build, form, enlist, enable, generate, sustain, and institute. You following me? All right. So we're going to go through each of these steps and we can chat about them as we go. And feel free if I get ahead of you, whatever the case is, or if you type too slow and I talk too fast, we'll get there. So create, build, form, enlist, enable, generate, sustain, and institute. And again, I'm going to go through them one by one here and break each one down. So if you miss it, obviously there's a VOD, but either way. So create Kotter 8-step process. Number 1, create a sense of urgency. That's so for create, you have creating a sense of urgency. And so Cheeseburger, this is what I was saying to you. This is the first step. Your first step is to tell people you're doing it. Help others to see the need for the change because they're going to say, you're going to move? Why the heck are you moving? And then you're going to tell them why. You're going to say to them, I'm moving because this city sucks, and this is why it sucks. Or this city makes me feel uncomfortable, or there's no opportunity, or I don't like the color of I don't know, of my house. I want a purple house, not a yellow. I don't know. You fill in the blank. But you need to create a sense of urgency, and by doing that, having that conversation, you begin the journey of change. Now, I will tell you this. 50% of all major changes fail at this point. The vast majority of people who say they're going to change, but then never change, fail right here. They literally, it doesn't get out of this, it barely gets out of the starting blocks. And that's why number 2 is so important. And this is why I say, when you tell somebody that you know will hold you accountable. Because number 2 is this word build. Build a guiding coalition. Find somebody that you know and trust, and that when you tell them, they are going to support your change. Why? Because they see it. Because, again, you've helped others to see the need for change. And when you tell them that I really need to change the amount of time that I spend watching TV because I'm not spending the time in the gym that I need to do, and I'm physically unhealthy, or I'm doing a master's degree and I'm spending 6 hours on TV when I should be spending 6 hours studying. Well, if you, number 2, build a guiding coalition, that person understanding the need for change is going to say, yes, you are right. You need to change. And I'm going to hold you accountable to that change. So have you started looking for a house yet, Cheeseburger? Do you even know what city? You know what? I can give you some recommendations on some good cities nearby that I used to live in, or some towns that I lived in that were phenomenal. Or hey, I can hold you accountable by download this app on your phone that'll tell me how much time you spend, so I can call you when you've reached your 6-hour limit for the week, and I can say to you, hey, you've spent 7 hours on your phone this week on Facebook or whatever the new thing is. I'm old, so Facebook's still a thing. Right? I call those guys your volunteer army. Those people who are going to soldier along beside you and hold you accountable for your actions or lack of actions. You following me? So create a sense of urgency. Build a guiding coalition. Those people around you. OG Pickle did this well early in his stream. So if those of you that don't know OG Pickle, go drop that dude a follow. And if you can afford it, a sub, because that guy's phenomenal. And he lived this very recently. So in developing his stream, one of the questions him and I talked a lot is, can I do this? Can he do this? And I said, absolutely, you can do this. As long as you follow these certain steps, as long as you keep doing these certain things, the things that, thank you, Shimode, the things that you do already and do them well, as long as you keep doing these things, sure, you can do it. And I was kind of early on his volunteer army when it came to helping him to communicate his activities and get things going. To some extent, I did it with Choco Taco as well. I'm not accepting any credit for Choco Taco at all. I'm just saying early on, I was a loudmouth in his chat. And that was one of the reasons why they made me a mod over there, because I was just this loudmouth. And I would pump the follows and the subscriptions. And I remember in one weekend, and again, I will pat myself on the back for this one. In one weekend, we got him over 1,000 subscriptions in one weekend through the efforts that we put in. Like, it's just, but you need that person, that support mechanism that's going to push your efforts with you and support you in your effort, in his case, to become a full-time streamer. Mrs. H, what's that? Sorry, not chatting too much, just speaking with the lady. We are trying to, yeah, no worries. Do what you got to do. I'm here for you. The VOD exists so you can go back and watch it later. And I would say this: anything you're not comfortable talking about in chat, know that you can whisper me or DM me, bring it up in Discord, whatever the case is. I encourage you to do those very things. It's not a big deal to me to follow up for you guys and to provide some guiding principles or whatnot outside of this as well. So 8-step process. Number 3 is the word form. So you want to form a strategic vision and initiatives. So vision and initiatives. So you first have to clarify what it is what your future is going to look like, what you're trying to achieve. So Cheeseburger, in your case, you're trying to achieve a town or a city that meets a certain set of requirements for you. And whether it's now or later, I know you're doing your studies and whatnot. I get that. And that may be, you're right, it might be an excuse, and that's for you to determine. That's for you and your guiding coalition, your army, so to speak, your accountability partner, to determine, am I just making an excuse, or can I get out of this town and still function and do my degree, right? And again, the idea of evolutionary versus revolutionary. Cheeseburger is this idea, again, of your personality will play into it. Some people can just do it and be done with it, right? Some people can quit things cold turkey. I am one of those people. So you got to communicate in 5 minutes or less, be able to communicate in 5 minutes or less. So this is a process within a process. You need to be able to communicate in 5 minutes or less with understanding why you need to have this change. So say going to the gym. So for me, going on the diet and heading to the gym, I could tell you very clearly why I needed to do that. I put on a ton of weight that I didn't want. I didn't look the way I wanted to look. I've never looked the way I looked before I started going to the gym, and I wasn't happy with it. And I wanted to keep up with my kids. My kids were starting to whoop me. I'm not okay with my kids whooping me. So for me, I mean, I had no problem communicating why I wanted to change the thing I was changing. Right? So again, if it's less screen time, it could be that, for eating cheeseburgers, I hope you're okay with me calling you cheeseburger, bro. It's one of those things where for him, he's articulated it well, making excuses now, but he's articulated it well about why he needs to make the change. And then one thing I would say is clarify it. Write it down. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Write it down. It might be that you stick it on the wall. It might be that you stick it in your phone as an alert. If you have a faith journey, if you're a believer, a Christian, or some other belief, it might be something that you pray about. That's all part of the journey. That's all part of the process of doing that. But you need to clarify your goals and aspirations. Best way to do that is to write them down. Yeah. Anyways, number 4 is this idea of enlist, and that goes back to your volunteer army. You've got to. So once you build that coalition and you've communicated your activity, you actually got to solidify those people. And it's not you take it from 1 or 2 to a massive amount of people. You then take because you've now been able to articulate your mission and vision for what you're trying to do. And now your goal is to amass the people, to get all of the people you can to get excited with you about it. So that when you have a bad day, they will kick your butt back into line. They will not let you get away with saying, no, I've changed my mind, I'm not doing it. They're going to go, but no, you can't. You've got 100 people here that are all saying you're going. So you're going, right? You've all told us the very valid reason as to why this needs to happen. You better now follow through and make it happen. You see why cheeseburger, this is why I'm telling you that you want to make it happen, start talking to people about it. So once you've, as the leader, instigated the change by creating the sense of urgency, building the coalition, forming the mission and vision, once you start building this army, you essentially hand over the leadership of it, the enforcement of that change to them. So that you, as the individual, when you have a moment of weakness in your quitting smoking and your screen time, you have this army of people now behind you pushing you forward saying, no. No, we're going forward. Failure now is no longer an option. And in your moment of weakness, and your moment of weakness might even be financial. Well, no, I can't because the apartment I was going to get was supposed to be $1,100. Now it's $1,200. You might find within that army the person that makes that $1,200 possible. And I mean, I speak from experience here. Rise Above is a living embodiment of this process where I felt a sense of urgency. I built a coalition. I started talking about it. Formed a mission and vision, 52-page business plan, as a matter of fact. Got it going, enlisted this volunteer army. And where at times where I thought, it's just financially, I don't know, how am I going to raise $170,000, then $200,000, then $250,000? Now we're, realistically $750,000. How do I? And now I got people that say, no, no matter what, you don't go away. Here, we'll help you financially. We'll do this, we'll do that. To the point where, I don't say thank you Best Buy for the sponsorship for nothing, or thank you AT&T, or, because now I have large-scale corporations that are willing to support us in our mission and vision. Why? Because of number 3. I clarified what the future looks like, and I'm able to clarify it and articulate it. And then when I do that, that volunteer army is what drives us forward, is what pushes us forward, so that you, even if it's an individual, we're not even talking that's a corporate thing. This works as the individual as well. But you've got to choose your army wisely, right? If you choose somebody to sit on your front lines in your army, in your volunteer army, who is weak constitutionally, who is unhealthy, has addictions and all kinds of other things, or socially is unhealthy, how are they ever going to be able to encourage you? So you need to find healthy people with which to put into your army. You need to find healthy people, and I think that's why a lot of people are wisely or unwisely drawn to this stream on occasion, because they think there is some form of healthy guidance here that can help them. Oh, welcome back, Miss H. Appreciate you, kiddo. And I think that it's important that, in all stages of our life, no matter what we're doing, that we have a healthy group of people around us that are there to encourage us in all steps of what we do. Number 5 in our 8 steps is enable action. So the word's enable. So enable action by removing the barriers. So Cheeseburger talked about your excuse. You got to know what your excuses are. Remove inefficient processes, hierarchies that are in place. Again, you're the leader in this thing. So if you're implementing change, start by being the person that says this change has to happen. And then once you've got your step 4 in and you've got your massive army behind you, they then become the driving force, right? So yes, you're at the steering wheel of it, but they're the tires, right? They're the engine of it that keep it going forward. You just kind of steer and guide as you fulfill the mission and vision. So in the process of doing that, if you've got, whether it's a person or another hindrance, could be and I often say I start with people on purpose, because usually it's a relationship, a single relationship that inhibits this kind of growth stuff. Here at Rise Above, when we work with these kids, it's one of the first things I say is you got to ditch your friends. Your friends are the reason why you're here, because they're enablers for you. They're the reason why you get away with staying out till 2 in the morning, because they're hanging out with you. You're the reason why you're getting arrested for being intoxicated or doing drugs as a 14-year-old. Because look who you're hanging around with. You want to know why you're arrested? Look to who you're hanging around with. You want to know why you're expelled from school? I'm going to guess it's who you're hanging around with. Those are barriers. And one of the first things you need to do is look around you. And what are my barriers? If your barrier is this, get rid of this. Find a way to minimize your interaction with this device or your computer. If your computer is your device or your drug of choice. I don't know why I did that funny scratch, but the idea there is you've got to provide freedom from those things. You got to provide pockets in your life, silos in your life where you are totally free from the distractions that are holding you back. And I'm going to guess the vast majority of those distractions are going to be living, breathing human beings. Just saying. Do an assessment. Do an inventory. Right? So Cheeseburger, we're going to stick with your example here for a second. Number 6, generate. Generate short-term wins for yourself. So you want to think about moving? Start visiting new cities. One of the best things that you can do for yourself is to get out of your little hometown comfort zone and go visit Nuremberg or wherever the heck you want to go. Maybe you want to move to Switzerland. I don't know. But get out. Go on vacation for a week. I tell you, every time I go to a new place, this past August, I went to Maui for 10 days, whatever the heck it was. A week and a half. I didn't want to come home. You get there. Well, it's Maui, that helps. But take Israel, Greece, any of the places, Portugal, any of the places that we've been. I go new places. I fall in love. I don't want to come home. and you want to increase your likelihood of success, try it. Get out of that little freaking town and go. When you think about organizational change, large structural organizational change, you take whatever the technology is, whatever the thing is, and give it to a couple people. Get them to become experts at it. Use it. And they're going to be like, wow, this is awesome. Well, this really made my job easy. Wow, simplified things. Oh, my gosh. If this stops me from talking to you all day, count me in. That's what usually people say to me. Right? I'm going on holiday in your backyard. Yeah. Story of my life. Most of the trips I take, Mrs. H, are paid for by somebody else. If I had to pay for the trips that I've taken, I'd be, flat broke. Oh, I am anyways, but, life of ministry. But yeah, the only way you're going to feel better about knowing that this is the place or this is not the place, because that's part of your fear, right? Is you don't want to decide, okay, I'm going to go live in town XYZ, and you get there and suddenly you're like, oh, this town sucks. There's no Starbucks here. There's no, I don't know, whatever your thing is. But if you go to a town and you tour and go, yeah, this place is all right. I could see me being here. Or no, it just doesn't quite have the vibe I'm looking for. Well, okay, that's fine. Well, another couple of weeks from now when I have more time, I'm going to go spend a weekend in the next town. In the next town, until I find the place where suddenly my heart melts and I fall in love, right? The only trip I've paid for, Mrs. H, in the past 9 years is my trip to Israel. And even that technically was paid for by somebody else through a gift that was given to us. Everything else has been paid for through other means. And I mean, legitimate means. I'm not being like, you can hire me to do all kinds of crazy stuff. No, that's not what I'm saying. So generate short-term wins. You've got to find ways to feel good about what's happening. We do this very often with our students. When they come in and they've never completed their test in their life. They've never fully completed an assignment in school. So what we do with them is we find little assignments, little quizzes or tests that they just knock it out of the park, right? They get a solid 80, 90% on, or even 100%, and we get over the moon excited for them. We become, again, their army, their cheerleading squad, where they can have this moment of victory and overcome whatever fear in that thing is that they had. Right? And that's why, as you're looking for a town to live, find a commonality in that town, someone you know already maybe, or an event that you do in other places where you have an immediate connection, where you can not feel as, feel as restrained or as confined with regards to your ability to communicate with others or be open and whatnot. Because your goal is to go there and fall in love with it, not just to visit and go, well, that sucked. So, and the scary thing about 6, and Jamod, if you're still here, this is part of it. The problem with 6 is that very often, because you're generating these little short wins, very often people will confuse this with success. Don't confuse these short wins, these short little victories that have to happen early and often. Don't confuse these with the overall victory you're trying to achieve. Because declaring victory too early can derail everything. Because what'll happen is you think you've arrived, and then suddenly there's still 7 more things that have to happen. And you think, oh my gosh, what happened? It's broken. And you get frazzled and you give up. So just be very careful that generating short-term wins is something that you understand and don't mistake for something other than what it is, which is short-term gains. Yep. No problem, Miss H. Number 7, sustain. Keyword here is sustain acceleration. This idea of forward momentum. You're not giving up on the process, that everything slows down to a dead crawl. When you start seeing those initial successes, that's your cue to push harder. So we have these successes with the students. We have these quizzes and tests that they do really well on. And then, okay, so now we pick up the pace. That trust, obedience, challenge, change, and growth. So as you grow, momentum picks up, right? You think of a flower or something growing. There's a point where it's no longer just a little shoot anymore. Suddenly, it just takes off. It's that same thing that you've got to do as you sustain this acceleration. You've really got to then move into this, the word is relenting. You've got to be relentless in initiating the vision that you've created. Remember that list you made in the beginning? You know, when you put together that forming your vision and strategic plan of your initiatives, it's here in your sustaining your acceleration that you're really going back and making huge check marks beside these things as you go. Yep, achieve that. Yep, achieve that. Yep, achieve that. And it just creates, it emboldens you when you start seeing the end, when you start seeing, okay, wow, I'm actually packing boxes. Holy crap, I signed a lease to move into this new place in wherever, you know. Or you're at the gym and suddenly, hey, you know what? I broke the 135 on bench press and now holy crap, I'm benching 185. Well, I never thought I only weigh 165 pounds. That's crazy. I'm benching 185. And hey, when I look in the mirror, I can actually see definition in my shoulders or what, I don't know, whatever you're looking at. This is the stage you're at. You're sustaining, you're seeing results and you're like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Things are actually moving forward. And so you then want to go to the gym. You then want to, come on, bring on the next test. I'll show you. You don't think I can do this? I'd show you I can do this. When just 5 weeks ago, you yourself were saying you couldn't do it. And now you're telling others, oh, you don't tell me I can't do that. Sure, I can do that. I'll show you. That's been my motto through my entire life is don't ever tell me no. I'll show you. No, I can't do that. Oh, yeah? I'm going to show you something. You ever want me to get something done, just tell me no, I can't do it. It's about to get done. And then number 8, institute. Institute the change fully. Fully articulate the connections, all of them. So you've done all of these things now. You've signed the lease, you've packed the boxes, you've, applied for the new job, you've switched schools maybe. Whatever it is. So now you got to take all that and you've actually got to put it into place. Right? And you've got to make sure, if in the case of your cell phone or healthy eating or living, it's at this point where you then have to make sure that you continue to replace old habits. So I go to the gym because I started putting weight around my belly. Older guys, we do that. We put weight on our stomachs. So I had to change my diet, and I started going to the gym. Well, as I started seeing progress, right, I had to continue to place old habits. So I didn't just work on my stomach. Yeah, no problem, Miss H. You're good. You're cool. I can't just focus on my stomach. That then turned into working on my arms, and then that turned into working on my shoulders and my chest and my legs. And I mean, you have to keep going and replacing old habits. That, old habits die hard type of a thought, you have to up your game. So take the stream, for example. Upping the game, Mrs. H, might be these stickers. That's upping my game a little bit. They're on their way, Mrs. H. That's part of the thing. You can't just say I've arrived and then stop. The gym is a prime example of that. If all you do is go to the gym and stay there to the point where you get into shape and then you stop, you failed. You failed. If your doctor says to you, if you don't change your eating habits today because you've had a heart attack and you need to cut XYZ foods out of your diet or alcohol or tobacco or whatever it is that you're doing, and you say, okay, I will do that. And then for a month, you change all your diet and your doctor comes back to you and says, oh, Mr. Fernandez, oh my gosh, what a dramatic difference. I got your chart here. And it shows that you've clearly instituted the changes that I've asked you to do. You've cut all these foods out and you've stopped drinking 17 days a week. And your cholesterol and blah, blah, blah is, it's a dramatic difference. Thank you. You're going to live much longer now. And I go, whew, thank God. And then I go home and say, okay, not good. I'm healthy again. I can start drinking and, and eating what I want and doing. No, that's not the way it works. And then back to Doritos. Yeah, that's exactly right, Air Max. That's the whole process. You can't, even you as Air Max, as a streamer, you can't, expect to do one thing a certain way all the time and see all this success and then think, okay, I've got success now, so now I can just go and do whatever I want. Well, no, because if you don't stick to what you know makes you successful, you're going to lose some of the success that you have. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't change the formula. You can, but that gets back to the other 8 steps where you have to formulate a plan, find out what works, and then go from there and give it to people to test, right? That's part of the process. So what's that, Jamo? You have an uncle who eats really healthy for a week or so, you're cheating the system and you're not actually doing anything to improve your lifestyle and to improve the lifestyle, honestly, of the people around you, because what you're doing is you're stealing from others in that case, right? Because your uncle probably has people, I assume, has people who love him very much. And you might be one of them, Jamot. And you want him to eat well. Why? Because you want him to be around for as long as possible. Right? Yeah, that's the point. And so for him, part of it might be that in order for him to be around a long time, he has to really methodically think about the change process for him so that he can enable that. And Air Max, as a streamer, we all want you to stream forever. Why? Because you're hilarious. We love watching your streams. You're a phenomenal PUBG player, right? So it benefits us that you only get better at what you do and not regress or stay the same. We want you to be the best that you can be all the time, so that we can... Oh, how fitting. How fitting is it that OG Pickle resubscribes to himself with his own voice in the background? That's awesome. Thanks for the resub, OG. Appreciate you, brother. Welcome back. You are one of my first and foremost subscribers, and I appreciate you every time you pop in. Folks, if you're not a subscriber and a follower of either Air Max or the OG Pickle, guys, you got to jump in and love on their streams. Both phenomenal guys, hilarious every day in what they do. And they have given me, through watching them, phenomenal advice over the years. In some cases, years, in months that we've been around each other, and I'm thankful for each of them. So I mean, those are the 8 steps. Again, to recap, you've got create, build, form, enlist, enable, generate, sustain, and then institute. And I can tell you that this is a formula that I have used for years in working with hundreds and hundreds of staff. In one case, 700 staff, all the way down to my own personal life in this past year. Take the whole weightlifting experience, getting back into the gym again. This idea that there is a process to this, and without the right people to support you. And I'm telling you, going back to the gym, one of the fundamental things that you need to be successful is to have somebody in the gym there to support you. You have to donate, bro. The dono cam only comes with... That's how you get the bicep flex. It just doesn't happen otherwise. But it's one of those things where... so this is... this is... the best way I can articulate this. What if we don't change at all? Quote unquote. What if we don't change at all? And something magical were just to happen? Everybody wants things to be better, but unless you accept the idea that change is going to happen, it's not going to happen. Right? If you think you're going to get, like OG wants me to flex, if you think that just by wanting it, that it's going to happen, it's not. There is a process for it to happen. That's the joke. And it was your joke, OG. So this thing called tipping point, and this is Gladwell, and it was written in 2000. It's called the tipping point. It's a theory of how change occurs. Now, this is where we're going to get real deep. Yeah, and you've got to want it. If forced change is never sustainable, Jomod, you're very right. Now, obviously, if you're in a paid environment where you're an employee of a company and change is put on you, and we can talk about institutional change if you want to, because that's really, honestly, that's my expertise. I was effectively known as a change manager in the corporations I worked with, because that was my job, to come in and revolutionize employees and organizations. Another title affectionately given to me by my headhunter, the one that shopped me around all the different companies, was I was a rescue manager. So I would come into broken companies and they would shop me around and say, hey, this guy can come in and help rescue your company, get it to a place where it's going to be, yeah, it is a process improvement, but a process improvement is singular in the sense that it focuses on a very defined space, whereas organizational change is all-encompassing. Process change is really defined and really sometimes can be minute or micro, whereas I'm more overarching, 10,000-foot view, very macro, very much big picture. I'm going to look at the whole organization and I'm going to tear it apart. And one of the things that I've gotten really good at is this tipping point thing, getting an organization just to the tipping point where it gets over the top and you get the ride. That's when all the fun stuff starts to happen. My job is to go through all the crap with you and get you to that tipping point where all the fun happens. And that's the hard part, honestly. That journey, that fighting, be honest, is probably the most difficult thing that you can do, right? Hey, Rabbi, what's up, buddy? And it is. It's a culture thing. Rabbi, one of the first things that when I come into an organization is I have a staff meeting with all of the staff, and I let it known then to everybody that there is about to be a huge culture shift, and then I explained what that culture is now going to be. And I very define who I am as a leader and what my expectations are. Because one of the biggest shifts when you talk about cultural or organizational change or development is this idea of fostering a particular culture where change is accepted. Because if you have a culture as an organization where change is never accepted or where it's frowned upon or fought against at all ends and all costs, no matter what you do, you're never going to get from A to B. So as a process change leader, as somebody that does that, my job is to implement that. And then I'm a huge supporter of this evolutionary change, not this radical change things. There is a time and space for radical, but I'm going to focus on the evolutionary change for now. This idea that I then come into an organization and I start picking low-lying fruit for quick wins where I can show the staff, hey, look, we're gonna change. It's gonna happen, and I do things that have as little social and emotional impact as possible, but bear much fruit to the staff. That particularly when there's redundancies, where there don't need to be redundancies, I start eliminating all these things, and staff go, oh my gosh, you just made my job super easy. As a double-edged sword a little bit, because some staff get worried and think, oh, wow, he's trying to eliminate my job. But that's a personal conversation where you just reassure somebody, no, I'm not going to eliminate your job. I'm going to improve your job, and I'm going to ensure that your job never goes away because we're going to make you the best employee that you can be. Right? So, I mean, that's part of the thing where you got to get it to a point where if I can convince that one employee that change, oh my God, you just made my job super easy. And, I'm so much more effective and I feel more empowered as an employee, because that's a big part of effective employees is empowerment. You have at that point someone who is contagious. You have a soldier. You have then recruited a soldier, somebody who is going to effectively help you be a catalyst for change. I think most companies struggle with the idea that corporate culture is more than just a lip service. And that's why corporately, culture is something that you need to look at least annually as an organization. Now, we're not talking corporate culture so much here, but it's worth a 2-second stare. This idea that culture, because it's in your home, it's wherever, and you all have jobs for the most part, and so culture can be on your stream. You sit there and you look at your culture, and you create a certain personality for what your stream is about. But it can't be lip service. It's got to be genuine. And that's what I love about Air Max's and OG's stream, since they were both here. Let's talk about them for a second. Is their stream is who they are. There is nothing fake about their streams. Like I picture going to OG's house and getting out of him socially, interaction-wise, what I get from him on stream. I don't think I'm going to get anything different than what I get from that guy. So being a catalyst for change isn't often a shock to it. Yeah. And it's a shock, Rabbi, because people don't do it all the time. They do it so infrequently. That's why it's a shock. That's why it's like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? We've reinvented the wheel. Why did we reinvent the wheel? We just needed to get widgets out the door. Right? Take it easy, Rabbi. Thanks for stopping in, buddy. Appreciate you. Great stream the other day, by the way. So the tipping point is important when you are talking about change, because if you can get to that tipping point of change, that's so. I'm trying to think of the best way to articulate this to you guys, because it's a concept that you've got to understand. It's not just something where I can spell it out. So think of a hill, and this is where I wish I had one of those pad things that I can write on. I'm going to invest in one where I can write on the pad, and I'll draw on the screen. Think of a hill and a guy rolling a boulder up the hill. There is a tipping point to that analogy, where as you're pushing that boulder up the hill, it's hard. It's a struggle. You're going to sit there going, man, this hill looked a lot smaller from the bottom. When you're halfway up pushing this boulder up the hill, you're tired, you're frustrated, you just want to let go of the boulder and be done with it, But in doing so, you risk the boulder rolling over top of you. You risk the boulder rolling back down the hill and hurting somebody at the bottom. And God knows, once it's back down at the bottom, because you've already been halfway up before, you're going to think, man, I know how hard it was to try this the first time. The second time you try it, it's going to seem even more impossible. So one of the important things for you to do as you start pushing up the hill is to have that army, that volunteer army, to keep encouraging you. That's why you ever watch any game shows or watch any, why do you think the home team always does better? They call it the home team advantage. That's why that army is so important. You need someone to cheer for you, to fight for you, to say you can do it. So that as you're pushing up that boulder up the side of the hill and you're saying, this is impossible, I can't do this, they're there to support you and even on occasion lend you a hand and provide you moments of rest and relaxation. But then there's a point. It's a point where you're going up the hill and you get to the top and you start to crest the top. And I call this the emotional peak, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, we're doing it. This is when all the panic sets in. This is when all the, and then when it actually sinks in and you push that boulder over the crest and that sucker starts rolling downhill, two things happen. Well, there could be three things that happen. One, it gets really easy, really fast. Because you've done all the hard work. You've done all the effort part. And now it's just implementations happen. Suddenly there's all these efficiencies that are happening. There's the rolling downhill that's taking place. And this is where the woohoo happens. This is where the excitement takes place. Think about it, a roller coaster is a great analogy of that. That as you're going up, the nervousness of it, the weird anticipation of the down the hill, and then when you go down the hill, it's the sheer excitement of down the hill. And then you get off the ride, you're like, oh, it was amazing. Oh, let's get back in line. That's what it's all about. That's what, when you talk about the importance of not giving up, that is the tipping point analogy by Gladwell is the most important thing you can understand. When you get to that point of reaching the pinnacle and getting over the top, change occurs very dramatically at that point. When we talk about weightlifting or whatever analogy you want to use, understanding the tipping point thing is key. Anyways, so let's talk about why things do and don't work here a little bit. So we're going to talk about change from a different standpoint. Man, I got 13 screens open on my computer. All right. So leading organization, four stages of change. And Cheeseburger, you touched on this a little bit already. So when you talk about change, very often there's denial. I don't need to change. Everything's just fine. We've been doing this for 30 years. We don't need to do that. And where there's denial, there is resistance. I will fight. I will fight against the change. You can't make me do it. Reality is, you must. And that's where, as a leader, whether it's for yourself or for a group, you need to be open-minded. Another way of saying it, you need to explore. And that's not to say, I'm not talking morally or ethically here, right? So I'm not talking about doing anything immoral, whatever your moral is. I'm not talking about being unethical, right? I'm not talking about, you just gotta, the kicking the dog's fun. You just gotta explore a little bit. Go out and kick a dog. See how it feels. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about, changes in your life like cutting down screen time and eating more healthy and things of that nature. But in order to do that, you have to explore. So cut out a chunk of time where you go and you say to your spouse or your kids or whatever, here, take my phone. I'm going to go today without my phone, or half a day or an hour. A lot of people say this about fasting. Oh, I could never fast. How do you fast? Well, you fast by not eating, first and foremost. In order to figure out whether you can or you can't fast, you actually have to try it. You have to explore the idea of fasting, right? Read about it. Study organizational change, maybe. A good thing, and we've done this before on stream, learn your personality type. Understand what you need to see and understand for change to take effect positively for you, and where it doesn't turn into an adverse childhood or adverse experience for you. To know where you go through change, yeah, you did it, but now you're afraid of going outside. You want the change to be positive. So you've got to be cognizant of that. And then the fourth stage of organizational change that I will usually talk about is this idea of acceptance or commitment. So again, you go through all this stuff. There's the denial point where I don't need to do it. There's the resistance where, if you're going to do it, I don't need to do it. The next question, okay, I'll at least look at it. Give me the paper. I'll read what you want to do. And then once you read it and understand it and you've done your homework and you realize, hey, crap, that actually might work. That's the acceptance commitment part where you actually start to sit down and say, okay, if we're doing this, this is what we want to do. This is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to look. This is the positivity that we're going to gain from it. So let's talk about organizational change just a bit. And I say organizational, again, it can be family, it can be whatever you want. How do you build a culture where change is accepted? I touched on it a little bit earlier with this idea of you've got to explore, you've got to train yourself. You've got to promote and reward those who want to become experts. If somebody goes above and beyond to learn or to suggest or to promote development or change, whether it be organizationally, individually, or socially, reward that, even if it's a change you don't implement. This is why companies that don't have educational plans for their employees, boo. If your company does not have an educational plan where you get $500 a year or whatever it is to go and make yourself better, that's a big boo earns to your organization that you work for, man. They should want you to be a better employee. They should want you to look for ways to improve or to change. The other thing I would say is find experts. And I say surround yourself with them. So if there's something that you want that you yourself can't do, as much as it is to read or Google or YouTube something, come to my channel and learn about it. Surround yourself with those people and encourage them to talk to you about it. Welcome back, Allie. You missed everything. Everything. Just kidding. Well, most of it. But you've got to find experts that you can sit with and have coffee and say, how did you do it? What did it feel like? You know? Was it expensive? Was it hard? Did you have to take a certain class? You know, there's wisdom because you don't know what you don't know. I love this phrase. If you don't get in front of people, so let me ask you this. How do you go about buying a brand new Ferrari from Ferrari? Can someone tell me? Without Googling it, tell me. Because it's not as simple as just going to a Ferrari dealership and buying a Ferrari. I'll tell you that right now. I know. Pick the most expensive one. Yeah, it's not that easy. You actually have to apply. You just don't go to a Ferrari dealership and buy a Ferrari. You actually have to apply, and they pick you. Truth. Especially the high, yes, for real. Especially the more expensive ones. The more expensive the car, the less likely you are, even if you got the most money in the world. You have to apply. They want to know how you're going to drive it. They want to know that you are going to drive it, because you can't buy it as a show car. It has to be a driver. Take the Ford F1, whatever the heck it's called, the Ford 500. You cannot get one of those cars unless you commit to driving at a certain amount of miles a year. Yep. So if you don't know if you say to me, oh, I'm going to go buy a Ferrari tomorrow, I'm going to laugh inside because I know you can't. It's not like going and buying a Dodge. You can't just walk into a dealership tomorrow and buy a Dodge and walk out an hour later with a car. If you say you're going to go buy a Ferrari, I'm going to giggle inside and go, we should probably sit down and talk. Because I don't care how big your checkbook is, you ain't walking out with a Ferrari tomorrow. So that idea of you don't know what you don't know and surround yourself with experts is critical. And that's why a lot of people watch streams on video games, is because they're learning from experts. They're learning from guys and girls who do phenomenally well at playing the game, and they see you guys as teachers. Right? They're watching you play these games. Like the first thing I do, as soon as I get a new game, I will watch YouTubes on it. And watch, you'll accept payments for a Ferrari, no application required. I will help you beat the process. But that's the reality.